Okay, let's dive right in. We're not starting today with the usual political back and forth. Instead, think about this specific number, $22 billion.
Yeah, that's the potential hit to residential property values in New Jersey. We're talking about a major political fight in Washington suddenly hitting home, literally threatening commutes and home values.
And it's also potentially stopping almost 100,000 jobs from being created. It's all tied to this sudden freeze of federal money for the Hudson Tunnel Project.
Exactly. That $22 billion figure, it's the real cliffhanger.
Yeah.
This isn't just some infrastructure project. It's critical. And now, because of this funding freeze, it's become the absolute center of the New Jersey governor's race.
Welcome to Nation Scope Podcast. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Jamie.
And this is where we dig into the headlines, the breaking stories, the big events shaping the U.S. and the world. Politics, economy, you name it.
Today, it's all about this crisis around the Hudson Tunnel Project, the HTP. A political move, perfectly timed with a government shutdown, has just completely flipped the script on one of the country's most watched state elections.
And we're going to get into the details, not just the money, but the justification used, this claim about reviewing unconstitutional DEI principles.
Right. We need to look at that rationale. Was it really about DEI or was it political cover? And how are the two candidates in New Jersey, Sherrill and Ciattarelli, trying to handle this massive threat to the state?
Okay, let's unpack this. First things first. The Hudson Tunnel Project isn't just, a nice-to-have upgrade.
No, absolutely not. It's an emergency fix. It's the heart of the bigger Gateway program.
And why is it so urgent? Tell us about the existing tunnels.
Well, the current North River tunnels, they're ancient. We're talking 110 years old.
Wow.
And they are the only passenger rail line between New Jersey and Manhattan. Think about that. Over 200,000 people rely on them every single day. They're running on borrowed time.
And wasn't there a major event that made things worse? Back in 2012?
That's right. Superstorm Sandy flooded them. Millions of gallons of corrosive salt water just poured in.
And the damage.
It was never fully fixed. The concrete, the electrical systems, the signals, it's all compromised. So failure isn't an if, it's really a when. It's an impending crisis.
So the new project is basically about building a backup first.
Exactly. Build a new two-track tunnel, get it running by, say, 2035. Then you can finally take the old ones offline, one by one, and actually rehabilitate them properly.
It's about redundancy.
Redundancy, which is also an economic shield, because the Northeast Corridor, this whole region, generates something like 20% of the entire country's GDP.
20%. That's huge.
It is. And if those old tunnels have even a partial shutdown before the new one is ready, the estimates are staggering. We're talking $16 billion lost to the national economy over 4 years.
$16 billion?
Which breaks down to over $100 million a day in economic damage.
You can see why New Jersey residents would be nervous if you can't reliably get into the city for work.
Your home value plummets, especially in North and Central Jersey. It connects directly back to that $22 billion property value risk we mentioned.
So it stops being this abstract infrastructure thing and becomes a real kitchen table issue. Affordability, taxes, everything.
Precisely. And that's why there was this huge federal commitment, right, secured under the Biden administration, about $12 billion.
Covering most of the cost, roughly 70%.
Yeah, around that. And the money came mainly from the bipartisan infrastructure law. Things like CIG grants, FSP, mega grants, these big pots of money designed exactly for projects like this. Cross-state, long-term stuff.
So this wasn't just a maybe. It felt like a solid federal promise backed by law.
Everyone thought so. It was supposed to be locked in.
Okay, so then came the political thunderclap. Let's move to the freeze itself. Political hardball, ideological cover. What happened?
Well, it happened right in the middle of a government shutdown. That timing is key. The Trump administration just suddenly announced they were freezing about $18 billion.
18? Not just the 12 for Hudson.
No, it hit the HTP and also New York's 2nd Avenue subway project, two massive Democratic state projects. The message seemed pretty clear. Stop work. Indefinitely.
And the official reasons they gave were interesting, kind of contradictory.
Yeah, they gave two main justifications. First, the procedural one. They said the government shutdown means the civil rights staff needed to review these contracts are furloughed. So we have to pause because the review can't happen.
Okay, that sounds plausible on its own, maybe. But then the second reason...
That's where it got more charged. The main public reason was this need to review the projects for unconstitutional DEI principles in how they handle contracts.
DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right. They argued that requirements about contractor diversity or hiring targets were basically federal overreach. They framed it as protecting the Constitution.
So wait, If the real problem was just furloughed staff needing to do a review, why bring in the whole DEI culture war angle, it feels like?
Yeah,
Overkill.
that's exactly the question everyone asked. Most political observers saw right through it. They said this was clearly political payback,
Payback against who?
aimed squarely at New York Democrats. Chuck Schumer in the Senate, Hakeem Jeffries in the House. They were being blamed to the shutdown, so this looked like retaliation. The DEI thing provided a convenient ideological shield.
Wow. So using critical infrastructure as a weapon against political rivals.
It definitely looks like the weaponization of the administrative state, as they say.
Yeah.
And it sets a really dangerous precedent. If federal money, even money approved by Congress, can just be frozen based on who's in power or what the current political fight is.
Then how can any state plan these huge long-term projects? The risk becomes enormous.
Exactly. It changes everything. No state project feels truly safe anymore.
Which brings us directly to New Jersey. How did this political bomb land in the governor's race between Mikie Sherrill and Jack Ciattarelli?
Oh, it completely upended it. Instantly became the #1 issue. Overshadowed everything else.
For Sherrill, the Democrat, who's currently in Congress, this must have felt like an opportunity.
Absolutely. It played right into her existing narrative. She helped pass the bipartisan infrastructure law that funded this. So she immediately positioned herself as the defender of New Jersey against, well, a hostile Republican administration.
And her response was pretty forceful.
Very. She promised to fight this tooth and nail, said she'd sue the Trump administration if she got elected. It cast her as the fighter, the one who'll use every tool to protect the state. Suddenly, her federal experience became her biggest asset for the governor's job.
Okay, so what about Ciattarelli, the Republican? He's got a tougher path here, right?
Much tougher. A real challenge. His main strategy was to try and deflect the blame back onto Sherrill.
How?
He basically argued, hey, if she'd done her job as a congresswoman and helped prevent the shutdown, we wouldn't even be in this mess.
That seems a bit indirect.
It is. And it's seriously complicated by his own history.
Right. The previous tunnel project.
Exactly. Back in 2010, Ciattarelli, as an assemblyman, actually supported Governor Chris Christie when he canceled the ARC Tunnel Project, the HTP's predecessor.
Oof. That makes it hard for him to now be the champion of this new tunnel project.
Incredibly hard. Voters, especially commuters, remember that cancellation? It undercuts his credibility on this specific crucial issue.
So you've got these two competing stories for New Jersey voters.
Totally. Sherrill's is simple. Trump's hurting us, I'll stop him. Ciattarelli's requires you to follow this whole chain. Sherrill's vote leads to shutdown, leads to furloughs, leads to halted review, leads to the freeze.
It's convoluted.
Very. And it's a risky political gamble.
Yeah.
He might alienate those moderate suburban voters who just want the tunnels fixed and don't care as much about the D.C. blame game. They prioritize stability.
Okay, let's bring it back to the folks listening. How does this high-level political fight actually hit the average person in New Jersey, the kitchen table effect?
Well, it's direct. Taxes and affordability are always big issues there, right?
Yeah.
This tunnel crisis slams right into both. That potential $22 billion drop in property values, that's not abstract.
Right, that's the biggest investment most people have. If its value tanks because commuting becomes impossible.
It hits everyone's bottom line. It makes the state less affordable. So the link is very clear.
And you mentioned the sheer number of commuters earlier.
200,000 a day. Concentrated in those key suburban counties, North and Central Jersey. They're a huge politically competitive group.
And this funding freeze must make their daily commute anxiety feel much more urgent.
Absolutely. It's not just about delays anymore. It's about the potential for a complete shutdown, about the state's economic future. It elevates it from a transit issue to a political emergency for them.
It's interesting, though, how public opinion seems to have really solidified on this compared to maybe 10 years ago, the ARC tunnel.
Oh, massively. After years of worsening delays, plus the wake-up call from Sandy, there's huge support now. Like, over 85% of people in the region want this new tunnel built. It's bipartisan.
So for that swing voter, the one maybe caught between parties.
This crisis really clarifies the choice, doesn't it? It becomes very tangible. Forget ideology for a second. Who do you trust more to fight for New Jersey's economic lifeline in Washington? It forces a very direct decision.
It really sounds like this election pivoted from who can manage the state budget best to who can best defend the state from federal politics?
I think that's a fair way to put it. And the fallout from this freeze, it goes way beyond just this one election cycle.
Yeah, let's think about that bigger picture for a final thought. What's the long-term chilling effect here? If this freeze sets a precedent, What does it mean for fixing America's infrastructure overall?
That's the really worrying question. If a president can just decide based on politics or ideology to unilaterally cancel funding that Congress already approved, how can states rely on federal partnerships anymore?
Especially for these massive multi-billion-dollar projects that take decades to plan and build.
Exactly. It injects this huge level of political risk. Future bipartisan deals to tackle crumbling roads, bridges, tunnels, they become exponentially harder if states fear the rug can be pulled out from under them at any moment.
That idea that essential infrastructure is now just another political football that could genuinely paralyze efforts to rebuild the country.
It really could. The outcome here in New Jersey, it might actually signal whether these kinds of massive federal-state partnerships have a future. It's a stark warning about politicizing things everyone needs.
You've been listening to NationScope Podcast, where Jordan and Jamie analyze the stories shaping America and the world.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.